The video you're about to watch has been designed to take you deeper, higher, and wider into Yahweh. Enjoy, and please subscribe. Thank you. Father, we begin to understand how deep you want us to go into who you are. A dimensional shift from where we are right now into the kingdom of heaven. We begin to understand that the journey there is in Christ. That it's a dimensional shift from within him, through the blood of Yeshua, that light that we get to go into. Same as Thomas when he stuck his hand into the side of Yeshua. Father, we have the ability to go in to Yeshua, to live there, and to literally shift from one dimension to another, to go into the kingdom of heaven, to begin to understand that we have the capacity to see, touch, and feel the fullness of Yahweh. We begin to understand the Yod, the Hey, the Shem, the Vav, the Hey, every dimension of the living word. We begin to understand what it means to step into Jesus Christ, to eat of him and drink of him. We begin to understand what worship really is. That it's an alignment of frequency. It's stepping in to that place where Yahweh is breathing unto his people and we are in him. And that frequency alignment from my spirit to the presence of Yahweh that brings me to a place of rest. Father, tonight we want to step into that place. We want to align with everything you have available for us, Lord. There's so much that you have poured into the nations. There's so much that you have poured into your sons and your daughters, and we just haven't had the abilities to engage with it. We have been taught not to. We have been pushed aside with these revelations that you're pouring in, the secrets, the mysteries that's coming in. Even as we speak, Father, you have said, my sons and my daughters will do greater things than what I did. And so, Father, we're beginning to see it in the earth. And of course, the ecclesia is freaked out by it because they didn't expect that. Father, we just want to go deeper. I want to love on you and worship you and magnify you. I want to begin to understand what it means to be inside of you. So that's what we're doing right now. I want you to just picture yourself just shift into him. Because the idea of spirit school is to train your spirit man to shift from the natural into the supernatural and to live and move and have the entirety of who you are as a spirit being in that kingdom, and to start legislating things into your soul and your body, and then begin to legislate that dimension into the earth to bring alignment. As a father is taking a group of people, a company of people that is hungry, and giving us a dimension of authority to bring alignment into creation. Because all of creation has been waiting for the sons of Yahweh. That's the mature ones. And so, Father, we're excited that we can be part of all of this, and there's so much that needs to be done. And I pray, Father, that you will give us the energy, the boldness, the zeal, power, the authority, the dominion that we need to just run with it. We love you, King. Love you, Yeshua. Amen. Okay, so what I want to do tonight, I want to touch base on why we need worship and what is worship. Of course, we have an understanding that worship is to raise our hands and to sing. It's all part of worship. I mean, I love that type of worship. That's all I knew. And of course, I was never really a good singer. So worship was boring. And I thought, because I don't sing, I don't like music, I'm not musically inclined. I just can't engage with my Father in this measure. I just couldn't express myself in that way. My wife can listen to a song and she knows it off by heart. I listened to the same song a million times and I switched off every time it just starts. And I remember when I was a kid, younger, I was listening to heavy metal music and I could just put it on and switch off from it, not hear a word. And I started doing the same thing in worship. I would just switch off from the music and I started engaging in Yahweh, just having a conversation with him, but the music would not really be able to take me in where I would like to go. And so for me to believe, according to what was taught, that worship is clapping hands, raising hands, singing, I was in trouble. Maybe someone can relate to that. But when I began to step into the kingdom of heaven and I began to understand what it means to be in the Spirit, and realizing that now that I'm physically in the Spirit, I get to worship in everything I do. I mean, understand things change. You know, I started going into the kingdom of heaven, started going into heaven at the intensity of the desire that the Father has put in me. You know, I begin to read scriptures that says, I'm seated in Christ in heavenly places. And so I say, well, Father, if I'm seated in Christ in heavenly places, then I need to see what's going on there. So, you know, we begin to understand that we have encounters. We can go into the kingdom of heaven. We can experience what it looks like, what is there for us to engage. And of course, because I am a spirit being in the kingdom of heaven, my spirit man gets to multiply into different sections of the different kingdoms within the kingdom of heaven. I get to do things and experience things and be taught things and get trained and equipped by the seven spirits and by Yahweh and engage with the angels and even with the saints of old and the cloud of witnesses. And there's so much going on, so much that we can do that you feel in your natural capacity, oh well, I must be neglecting God. And so we kind of want to get to the throne the whole time to worship Him because that's what we perceive worship to be. But in the time that I've been engaging with the Father and just spending time in the heavens and in Eden and just going into the different dimensions and the different kingdoms and engaging with the different things that He's opened up for me, I've realized that everything you do in the Spirit is worship.
Come on.
So it kind of changed everything for me to realize, and it was really not just because my spirit knows all things. My soul is the one that says, well, you're not standing in front of Him, worshiping Him. You're not raising your hands and telling Him how wonderful and how beautiful and how awesome He is. So it's not worship. If you are speaking to one of the saints of old, how is that worshiping Yahweh? If you're engaging with the angelic or you send on an assignment into the earth to bring alignment, how's that worship unto the Father? And we have to begin to understand that everything the Father created in the kingdom of heaven is to propel me deeper into an intimate relationship with Him.
Yes.
He says, my people die because of a lack of knowledge. So everything I do in the heavens shifts and aligns me to go deeper into a relationship with Him. Because I get to know Him, I get to understand Him, I get to perceive Him, I get to look at Him from different angles and see how awesome, beautiful, majestic this God really is, how much He loves me, how much He cares for me, how much He wants me to grow and mature and become everything that I agreed to on my scroll before I was sent into my mother's womb.
Yes.
There's an intensity. We begin to understand that the moment you get born again, you become a supernatural human being. But something changes. Now I say born again, but we are beginning to understand that the original never said born again. It's because we are the only religion, now that's a stupid statement because we actually are the only religion, but the only religion that does not read its original text. We are the only religion that's got 5,000 different translations, and that we take off all these translations to get a truth that suits us. But the original didn't say born again, it said born from above. Now that basically changes things quite rapidly. It makes me understand that my spirit was never a baby. So because as I get born again, my understanding is that I now have to grow because I was a baby. But that's not the truth. See, what needs to happen is my spirit needs to regain the knowledge that it's lost when it was bound to my soul. Because I get birthed into a world that's really designed for death, destruction, and nullification. Because the kingdom that's at hand is the kingdom of darkness, right? And we're also beginning to understand that there's really no kingdom of darkness. There is a kingdom in darkness, and the only reason the kingdom is in darkness is because we've given it over to Satan. And all that he knows how to do is kill, steal, and destroy. So he's taken all the truths, all the revelation that he receives from the kingdom of heaven as a covering cherub, and he uses it in the nations. He perverts it, he twists it, he turns it, and he allows sons and daughters of Yahweh to trade into his mountain. And we're beginning to understand that as sons and daughters, we have to take back everything that's out there that does not belong to Satan. As a matter of fact, that's everything that the church has believed is Satan's is really ours. And we have to realign it and bring it back into place. That's why the creation is waiting for the sons of God. But I begin to understand my spirit has always been. So Yahweh says, let us create man in our image. That was, if you understand the Genesis, it was quite a long time before man was formed and the breath of Yahweh was blown into his nostrils. So it didn't just happen immediately. So the process is intense. He did not create Adam and then, ta-da, there was mankind. And then Adam created, and him and his wife multiplied into the earth. There was creation. And Yahweh said, let us make mankind. And we just need to begin to understand. So I've always been. I'm an ancient being. That's why when you get born again, you have this infused knowledge in your spirit. You have this understanding. You see things, you perceive things, and all of a sudden these things become like an engagement. It becomes like a vision, and you begin to understand things. Why? Because my spirit knows. And that's why he said to Nicodemus, well, you have to be born again. You have to be born from above to enter into the kingdom of heaven. You have to be born again to see. Right? Because that's the key to us engaging with Yahweh. We have to be able to see. If I can't see him, touch him, feel him, then everything is just by what I believe about my faith. And I need to understand, Yahweh, Yeshua made a statement and said, I only do what I see my Father do. So if he could see his Father, then we need to understand, if you're not seeing your Father, then you're doing something wrong. You know, Moses in the Old Testament got to go in and spend 80 days with Yahweh face to face. So much so that he came down and his entire face was changed. If you read the original, it says lion, ox, eagle, man. It says horn-like appearances, thunder, lightning, voices in fire, voices in lightning came out of him. Then he went as far as to smash the golden calf into powder. Now, I've said this a million times, but if you understand the significance behind that act, he comes out of the presence of Yahweh, out of 80 days of intense worship and adoration, just engagement, and he's burning with a minimum, because if you smash gold to powder, you're burning at 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty intense. But we begin to understand that we are now separating my soul from my spirit, and my spirit from my soul, and my spirit, as the ancient being that it is, gets to go back into the kingdom of heaven and regain the knowledge, the understanding, the perception of who I truly am back. I'm beginning to go in, and the Father is beginning giving me the revelation I need to succeed in my scroll. And that's what worship is all about. That's why the Bible says you can only worship me in spirit. God is spirit, and you can only worship him in spirit. Now, we have had this perception, well, for me to worship God in spirit, I must sing in tongues. Or I must pray in tongues, because when I pray in tongues, I'm in the spirit. Well, that's the beginning, because that's the gateway, that's the doorway, that's a gateway, a doorway, because it's a frequency alignment. So if I speak in tongues, it begins to align a frequency from my spirit to the heavens. That's why when you pray in tongues, you see visions, you feel that you can pray with greater accuracy. There's things that opens up, there's things that you begin to understand and perceive, because there's a frequency alignment. But in the same breath, the Father wants me to begin to understand that it's not just my spirit that needs to enter in. I enter into the spirit as a spirit being, leading my soul and my body to go in as well. But for me to begin to understand how to do this, I have to activate my imagination. We've gone through this already. My imagination is the key to my sight. So I just need to begin to see, as I've divided soul and spirit, I begin to see how my spirit shifts into the spirit. It's something that I have to physically see. Because the only time you'll ever be in the spirit is when you're in the spirit. Now, I don't know how much sense that makes, but I can pray in tongues until I turn blue in my face. The only time that I step into the spirit is when my soul, my spirit's divided, and I'm no longer a soul. I become a spirit. That's why we need to understand we are not human beings, we are spirit beings. When I get born from above, I shift from the soul to the spirit. My spirit man is activated once again, and the true me begins to arise. The true me wants to be with the Father, and the true me wants to spend time with him, engage with him, love on him, go back into him. That's the Hebrew culture. The beginning is always in the end, and the end is always in the beginning. And the very, very first scripture of the Bible, or words in the Bible, says, "In God," or "in the beginning was God." Right? And so we need to begin to understand that is also the very last, the very end. It's Him wanting us to go back in. And that is where worship really begins, when you go back into Him. And of course, that's why Yeshua is the doorway in. And of course, that's why we don't do anything outside of Christ. You begin to understand that you become a spirit with a soul and a body and living inside your spirit. That's the shift that needs to take place. Now, that's something that we can do by faith, but as you grow in who you are as a spirit being and in the spirit world, things align and change for you. Because if you look at Yeshua's ministry, then you see how things changed for Him. He did things that is supernaturally impossible.
That's right.
You know, He walked on water. I don't know anybody up to this point, except some musicians, not musicians, musicians. I don't think the musicians are walking on water. Magicians that's walking on water right now. And I don't know, there's this one guy, I shared it before, his name is Domino. They made a video of him walking on a river somewhere in England. There was no way that he could have props or anything. It was some weird, looked to be demonic. It was just strange. He does the strangest things. But Yeshua walked on water, He walked through people, He appeared, He disappeared, because His spirit man was His host, which means His spirit was His temple. And we have believed that my body is my temple. No, my body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Not my body. My body is not my temple. My body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. My temple is my spirit man. Therefore my soul and my body is designed to live in my spirit. And if you look at Yeshua's life, that's why He could shift into His spirit and disappear. Where they wanted to kill Him, and He's in the temple, and He shifts into His spirit, and the Bible says, and He walked right by. They walked right by and could by no means see Him. You know, He walks through people. They didn't make a path for Him. He literally walked through people that wanted to kill Him, because He could shift into His spirit. And of course, we don't really understand that yet, but that's a dimension that the Father wants us to begin to have revelation of, because out of that place, we begin to understand worship. Because worship is not what you do. Worship is what you are. It's who you're created to be. It's the design the Father has placed on you. It's everything that comes out of you. My previous pastor, which I honor and love very much, we used to work together. I was his assistant, but he would say that every act of your day has to become a form of worship to the Father. When you get to the end of your day, can you take every act of your day and present it to the Father as worship? Now that's on this side of the veil. Beyond the veil is a whole different ballgame. Because beyond the veil, I get to go in Him. I get to physically spend time with Him. I get to sit by Him. I get to learn from Him. I get to walk with Him. I get to go into secret places with Him. I get to engage with mysteries and secrets as He reveals to me all kinds of exciting and awesome things. How you guys doing?
Amazing.
I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking, that is impossible. I could not possibly been busy for an hour already. Okay, but I've only been busy for 20 minutes. God predestined us to know all of who we are in our mother's womb. Now I need to explain that, because when you entered into your mother's womb, you agreed to everything that's on your scroll. You've already been in the kingdom of heaven. You've already walked in full revelation of worship and adoration. You've understood the seven spirits. You've engaged in every dimension, every kingdom. You are an ancient being that has walked with Yahweh like the angels for many years. But the difference between you and the angels and you and the demons are that you are a three-strand DNA being. Right? So when we are born into the earth, the primary strand of DNA is not completely activated. That's your spirit man. Your spirit man only gives life to your soul and your body. It's only when you get born again or born from above that your spirit man is reactivated and you become the one with dominion over the earth. There's a major shift that takes place in who you are, because everything changes. From being two-strand DNA, where you have no dominion, no authority, you have no power, you're just a normal human being. If you can go to the dark side, where Satan and his demonic entities will possess your body, where you can do great signs, great wonders, do great things. And there's, of course, many people out there that works like that, but it is demonic, and it will eventually destroy your life. When you begin to understand who you are in Christ, as a born-again being, everything overshadows. So you overshadow everything because as a 3-strand DNA being, you overshadow any being with 2 strands of DNA. That's demons, angels, and unsaved human beings. Now, we don't overshadow them and we don't overpower them, but in the spirit we have greater authority. That's why before you're born again, you can't cast out demons. You don't have authority over angels. Not that we have authority in the way that we perceive it. It's a relational authority. Like I have authority over my wife, but let's be honest now. She'll kick my furry little butt if I have to present that in any wrong way, because it's not like that. It's not some submission hold that she has to submit to and abide to. You know, we are a team that works together, and nothing gets done in any way, fashion, or form where I tell her, well, that's how it's going to be, just deal with it, woman. It doesn't work like that. That's not marriage, right? That's not covenant. We sit down and we express and explain the way we feel about things, and eventually we have to get together and say, well, this is going to work or this is not going to work in a decision that we want to make. I can't overshadow every decision. And the Father kind of wants us to get to the place where we understand who we are in Him and who He is in us. He wants us to begin to understand that worship gets you to that intimate place where you get to know Him at the levels that He's made available. And of course, it's going back into the kingdom of heaven, regaining the knowledge, the understanding of who you were before you were set into the womb, and how that restoration of the blood of Yeshua is bringing you back into that place where you begin to understand, well, this needs to change, that needs to change, but it can only really change when I'm beyond the veil and I'm engaging with Yahweh and He pours into me. Exciting, right? The Spirit world waits for your engagement in worshiping the Father in the Spirit. As a matter of fact, I remember a couple of times that I've gone into the kingdom of heaven, the first time that this really became a revelation to me, and I would enter into the kingdom of heaven, and it would be like the entire heaven stopped. And everybody would just turn and look at me with this massive smile on their face. And I would really begin to understand that the Father has been longing for a people to come in. Because for decades we've been saying, come Holy Spirit, come Father, come, bring your presence, come fill up the room. So He has had to come. You can't even understand, my body was not designed to withhold the presence of Yahweh. You can look at in a meeting where His presence overshadows, shaking, laughing, falling, crying. It's an overwhelming confusion, and it's great, and it's powerful, and it's beautiful, but it's an overwhelming confusion on the physical body. Why do we shake? Why do we fall? Why do we laugh, cry? There's an emotional roller coaster that takes off because my body wasn't designed for His presence. That's why we begin to understand the living sacrifice, where I have to have Him take off the skins so that the glorified me can come out again, so that I can experience the fullness of His presence and glory in my physical body. And of course, it's a process of going deeper and deeper into Yahweh, where your physical body can begin to take His presence. But my spirit man, on the other hand, can take His full presence. That's why the idea of who we are as sons and daughters is I would constantly find myself going into Him and just loving on Him, worshiping Him, and I'm going into the kingdom of heaven, engaging in all the different things that He opens up for me to go into. And when my body comes, my spirit comes back into my body now, understand, I know what that sounds like. Oh, you do spirit travel, that's New Age, shut you up. That's not what happens. My spirit doesn't go anywhere. My spirit in me shifts a dimension. Now, the Bible says that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So if I put my hand like right to my face, not touching it, but right there when I begin to feel the heat, that's where the kingdom of heaven is. So my spirit doesn't have to go anywhere. My spirit just activates that kingdom in me. And I begin to see and begin to experience the things the Father wants. Because my spirit doesn't have to go anywhere, but yet when I'm in the kingdom, my spirit will move into different places. And as a matter of fact, when we understand the legal travel order, it is all 100% legal. If there's an illegal way of spirit travel out there, then it has to be a legal way, because it's a perversion of the original. And of course, the ecclesia has just been afraid of that. But if you look into history, hundreds of spiritual born-again men and women of God has experienced that. Paul himself says, okay, in jail, when my spirit gets there, start the meeting. You know, his spirit got there so many times that when he eventually got free from the jail, he knocks on the door. They went as far as to say, well, I think it could be his angel. But it can't be him because he's in jail. So I don't know, what do we do? Because he's traveled in the spirit so many times. But of course we overlook all of that because we have placed our awesome, majestic, almighty, infinite God into a tiny little box. He can't be contained. Right? He will never overshadow his word, but he will always overshadow your perception of the word. The way you perceive it, the way you look at it. The other day, I shared a little bit now, in all the different schools we have, I teach on different subjects. And one of the schools I just started with baptisms, and the first baptism I did was on the baptism of the cloud of Moses, which is basically the marriage covenant that Yahweh presented to his people. And it's all about the Ten Commandments, not being 10 commandments, but really being a marriage contract presented to a nation that you wanted to be intimate with. And then, of course, how they rejected it. And, of course, the idea behind who they are and how they came out of slavery. And, of course, all they had in their understanding is, oh, he's commanding us to do things, because that's all they knew. And so we look at the 10 commandments and say, well, he's commanding us that we have to do these things. And of course, if we understand, if I tell you, I command you to love me, that's not going to work. The God that I know won't command in the manner that we have perceived it or understood it to be. But I was just talking about it, and I got a comment afterwards. And what the guy was basically saying is, he talks to angels. He says the 10 commandments is just suggestions. He leaves his body and does spirit travel. He is a New Age false teacher, run. Now, of course, I don't care too much about what he says, but that's the perception of the church. Now, I wanted to do all kinds of things. I wanted to text him and say, guys, just go back and listen to the message, because I didn't say any of that stuff. I would never say that the 10 Commandments is just 10 suggestions, because that's not what it's about. I didn't do any of the stuff that you're accusing me of, but the Father just said, we just don't worry about it. Love on him, overshadow him, and maybe he'll change. Because the ecclesia is just scared of these things. We're not looking at it through the eyes of Yeshua. We're not looking at it in him. And let me explain to you, we are not worshipping him in the spirit. I've engaged with men and women that is so intense in their worship. I met one of my heroes the other day, and I realized that his worship is incredible, but he worships on the side of the ladder. That is a problem, because it could really do much for my soul. But when I step beyond that veil and I begin to worship, everything changes. I don't even have to sing. A note does not have to come out of my mouth. But the frequency that elevates over my spirit, over my soul, over my body, changes lives. It affects everything. I remember a lady walking towards me, and I just finished ministering, and while I was really teaching, my spirit was doing some things in the spirit realm, and while she was coming towards me, my spirit came back into my body. That sounds crazy. And as my spirit came in my body, I took a step forward, and she just flew against the wall. And she said, wow, what was that? It was an extreme presence that just pushed me back. My body couldn't contain it. I said, what did she ask me what happened? I said, well, my body just came out of the full presence of Yahweh. My spirit man. So I just believe the Father wants to begin to take us on a journey where we understand who we are. Yes. You know, and everything we engage is about worshiping him, loving him, but going beyond the veil. He didn't tear that veil for the fun of it. You know, he teared that veil so we can go into it and operate in the Holy of Holies, live, move, have our being from outside of him, entering into the levels that he's made available and engaging all of who he is. He says in Psalms, enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his name. See, it's always been his desire for us to constantly find ourselves in him, worshiping, glorifying, magnifying. You know, I love studying, reading the Word of God. I love going into who he is. But there's so many new realms and dimensions that opened up. You know, in all my theological studies, which I've explained up to this point, which is 13 years, I did my bachelor's degree, I did associate's master's degree, I did 2 years of Rhema, I did 3 years of my own Bible school, my own Mother Church Bible school, I did a year of Bethel, and it was incredible. It was incredible, and I learned so much, but when I started going beyond the veil, when my spirit man was activated in his full capacity, and I divided soul and spirit, and I started entering into the kingdom of heaven, where, and if you don't understand what the kingdom of heaven is, it is the third heaven that Paul talks about. But we also began to understand that he was Hebrew, so he didn't mean three like what we understand, 1, 2, 3. He meant three, meaning Gimel, which is full supply. So he was caught up into the full supply, which is the kingdom of heaven. So when I say kingdom of heaven, I'm talking about the full supply. So when I go into the full supply of heaven, and I begin to understand who I am as one who worships and adores and magnifies Yahweh, everything I do, everything I engage in that moment when I'm there is worship unto Him. Yes. And it changes and reforms me and realigns me and propels me to a deeper place in Him, where I begin to get activated in the things that I was destined to walk in. It's the Father's desire for me to know who I am. And there's a generation that's mature, I say mature, but I'm thinking more manure, in our ecclesia that's leading nations in the church world that does not have this, that does not want this. That's the ones that's saying this is occultic and this is New Age. Because they cannot fathom that we can go in and no longer have to wait for His presence, but we can go into His presence. Yes. That moving into the spirit realm, living there, operating from my from my mountain within the kingdom of heaven into the earth through my soul and my body is the way the Father desired for us to legislate the fullness of the kingdom of heaven into the earth. To begin to understand what it means to occupy my mountain. What it means really is that which is written on my scroll, I have agreed to. I'm beginning to understand what it said, and I'm beginning to do it, and that is bringing the mountain into the earth, which is the authority, the dominion that I have as a son, one with dominion and authority over the earth. I'm legislating that into the earth and beginning to align things. That's why he said, wherever you put your foot. That's why Caleb said, I want my mountain. Yes. At 80, he said, I am stronger today than what I was when I was 40. Because there's a desire placed in the hungry ones, where the Father doesn't want to command us. He doesn't want to tell us what to do. He wants you to be so hungry for Him. He wants you to literally have His desires in your heart. He wants you to be one with Him to such an intensity that everything you do because you are desiring to do it in a manner that He wants you to do it. It's not something, oh, well, do I think I should? I wonder if I should do this. I'm praying about this. I'm not sure if I should do it. I don't know. Maybe He wants me to do it. Maybe He doesn't want me to know it. There's a company of people that knows. Come on. Because when you're in the kingdom of heaven, there's an understanding and a revelation, and you know everything. You know, what we always say about when I see God, I'm going to ask Him this, and this. Well, when the first time you see Him, you're not going to ask Him anything. Because there's an infused knowledge that my spirits always have. My spirits walk with Him. When I step into the kingdom of heaven, there's deja vu everywhere. Is that the right word? Where I've experienced that before. A lady friend of mine writes a book, and I read this book about 9 years ago, well, maybe 8 years, I'm not, 2013, 5 years ago. Okay, maybe 2012, maybe 11. Anyway, about 7 years ago, say 7 years. Just make it 6 years. Okay, but I read this book, and it was a little bit strange, but it was really nice. And what she was basically saying is that the Father engaged with her, and she was in the kingdom of heaven, and he was speaking to her volumes of revelation on the blood. And when she came back into the natural, she just started writing. And 30 chapters of her book, short chapters. It's a two-piece book. One is about the biblical study of the blood, and then the first part is about the engagement, where the Father spoke to her and told her about the blood from His perspective. And she just wrote all this down and put it in a book called The Blood. And now recently, I went back and started reading it again, and everything that she has written in that book was a confirmation of things that I've walked in and experienced in the kingdom of heaven. Yes. Everything. That's why I've taken her book, and I'm just ministering on it, because there's 30 chapters in things that I've been walking in for the last 7 years. Because it's like a deja vu. Everything that you're experiencing now in the kingdom of heaven, you know in some way, fashion, or form you've experienced before. Not in the same measure, but see, it's your spirit man having to regain the knowledge that it lost while it was bound to my soul. See, his desire for us to enter his courts, to engage him. He wants us to come to him. He doesn't want to come to us anymore. I know that sounds terrible, but he does, of course. He loves us. We don't even understand how much he loves us, how much he wants to spend time with us. He created, they say, I say they because they know everything. It must be friends with Google, I'm not too sure, but they know a lot. But they say that there's up to 900 billion galaxies in this universe, and now they say there's more than one universe. Yes. So we have multiverses, and in your average universe there's 900 billion galaxies, and we're one galaxy. So we're beginning to understand as an almighty, infinite God that creates non-stop. He's doing something, but he made it very clear that we are the only created being in his image. That all of creation is waiting for us to wake up. So there's a majority of him wanting us to begin to engage, begin to understand who we are, see how important we are. Now, it's not a me, myself, and I gospel or theology. It's just the Father's desire for us to understand who we are, because we have no idea. You see, he's had the ability over the last 2,000 years, maybe 7,000 years, whatever how long it is. He had the ability to take back what he gave us in the beginning. Let us give man dominion over the fish of the sea, birds of the air, beasts of the field. But he never did. He left us, waiting, doing everything in his power, since Yeshua. The Bible says the Lamb was slain before the foundations of the earth. Right? So Jesus really he didn't really have to come. He was already slain. But Yeshua got to the place where he looked and said, they're not getting it. 5 people got it. Out of everyone I created, we've got Enoch, Moses, Isaiah, maybe Ezekiel. We've got David. There's a couple that got it, Joshua, maybe Caleb. There needs to be more. So my soul needs to be able to look at something, see what it did, and then maybe I'll perceive and go deeper. And if we understand the Old Testament way, it was all through intimacy. These guys, Enoch, Moses, David, they had intimacy. Elijah, they had intimacy with him. They loved on him. They worshipped him. Moses was so intense with him, he could argue with God. He could say, now you need to repent, dude. Now you want to take them out? You made promises to them. You said that they're going to receive this and they're going to go there. You can't kill them. You have to forgive them and you have to repent because your attitude's wrong. This is a man talking to a God. I mean, if I was God, I would just go, But they were buddies. They were best friends. That's that intimacy. And that's why Moses is also the only created being that died and his body was taken into heaven. Every other human being that died had his body buried in the ground. That's also why Moses was on the Mount of Transfiguration, because he was Yahweh's best friend. Intimacy is the doorway into everything in the kingdom of heaven. Matter of fact, every promise the Father has ever given you, the entrance into that promise is intimacy with him. Now, of course, if anybody is married, you'll understand, I cannot, my wife will say, okay, well, if we spend a little more time talking, then maybe things will change. So I can't now try my best to talk to her. It has to be a natural thing. The relationship is a natural thing. You have to work at it all the time, but it's natural. I can't make myself want to talk to her. Does that make sense? I'm trying to bring an example here. I haven't seen my wife in 2 weeks, so there's a glitch in my download. But the idea of relationship is that there's constant relating to each other. And it's not just physical, it is intimate in all different areas. You want to get to know her, and she wants to get to know you in every area of your life. And whichever part is lacking will affect all the other parts. So I can't just sit on my knees and say, okay, Lord, I need you to supply my needs. I need you to forgive my sins. That's not a relationship. I can't go to my wife every time I say, baby, I'm sorry, I love you so much, but I cheated on you again. Or I need you to cook me food. I need you to go to my closet, which is a nightmare, and pick up all the clothes I throw on the floor there. And I need you to do this, I need you to do that. I need you to put the toilet seat down once I'm finished. I mean, I understand that will be an explosion of I don't know what. But, you know, that's kind of where we at with God. She's not there to supply my needs. Over the last 2 weeks, and it's not just over this 2 weeks, but over the last couple of years, we've realized in our marriage that we do not need each other. Now that sounds like, oh no, that sounds like a big fat problem. But that's where the Father wants us to get to understand. I don't need my wife. I can be at home, I can look after the kids, and if I'm not there, she can be there by herself, she can look after the kids. We don't need each other, but we want each other. That's what it's all about. I don't want to do it without her. She doesn't want to do it without me. And we can get to the place where we understand, well, I don't need God. When you say, well, that's not true, everybody needs God. You can't live without God. That's just a Christian saying. Look out there. There's thousands of people that I personally know that does not know God in any way, fashion, or form. And they are happy not knowing Him because what they have perceived Him to be is a big, fat, nasty God that has lightning bolts. Return or burn, repent or die. So they don't need Him, but they need to understand that they actually want Him. And I always say this, if you receive the gospel in its pure form, you cannot reject Yeshua. It's impossible. Because the love that He projects, who He is, what He did, the reason He did it for is only but because He loves us. And once I had that revelation, I entered into the kingdom of heaven to worship, and I began to understand what John said when he said, God is spirit. And those that worship Him must worship Him in spirit and truth. And we understand, well, I can't even get to the spirit realm unless I'm in Yeshua. And He is the truth. And of course we understand He is the fullness of the Word. In Him is the access into the spirit realm. How are you guys doing?
Awesome.
So really what the Father wants us to begin to understand is that as I walk in the Spirit, as I begin to worship and understand who I am, things change. There's a scripture in Revelation, one that I want to read quickly, and I've read it a million times, but I want you to listen to this and I want you to understand. The dimension of worship, the Father is opening up to it, and I'm going to try and close with this. The dimension the Father is opening up for us in worship is so that we can begin to walk like this, look like this, and begin to understand who we are. In Revelation 1 it says, and I turned to see the voice that spoke to me, and being turned I saw 7 golden candlesticks, and in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man. I want to stop there for 2 seconds and remind you that Yeshua is the Son of Man. Okay, one like unto the Son of Man is someone that's like Jesus. There's only one created being that's like Jesus, and that's us. And so John is basically saying, I did not see Jesus. I saw one like Jesus. But that's just my understanding of that scripture. And I begin to understand that the Father kind of wants us to see who we are to be, what we are to become, how we are supposed to look like. Clothed with a garment down to his feet, and girt about the cups with a golden girdle. His head and his hair as white as wool, and as white as snow. His eyes were as a flame of fire. His feet like a fine brass, and if they burned, as if they burned in a furnace. His voice was like the sound of many waters. And he had, in his right hand he had 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword, and his countenance was like that of the strength of the sun. Now that's what the Father's desire for us is to look like. Now that's what we basically are, the sons of light. Have you ever heard that saying? There's a company of people that worships on that side of the veil, that enters in and that engages with the Father. See, you become what you behold. If I'm constantly in Yeshua's face, constantly in his presence, I'm going to end up looking like him. Now I want to close with this. I saw in one of our meetings I was engaging, and my spirit man was really outside of the atmosphere, standing very high into the atmosphere, and I was just overshadowing a region that the Lord showed me that I needed to overshadow with my spirit. And while I was doing that, as I looked up, there was this massive, massive dragon that really overshadowed the entire region that I was meant to overshadow. And immediately my understanding was that this thing needed to be taken out. So while I was standing there, I was taken into the court of war, and with strategy and explanation, the Father started showing me what I need to do. And so what I did is I cut open his belly, and what I would usually do is a bigger process. I would take what falls out, I'll put it in the mountain, my mountain, and I would begin to trade with that for the nations of the world, or for the region the Father showed me in the Sea of Glass. But this time the Father told me just to cut it open and let it rain out into the region that he showed me. It was a massive region. I'm talking Mobile, Alabama, New Orleans, just all the way around us. Denham Springs, Baton Rouge, Maurepas, Lafayette, New Orleans, all around. Massive, massive section. And I remember while I was doing that, after I cut his stomach, these 12 lights. And again, I thought it was angels at the stage that it happened, but then as I engaged again, I realized it was actually light beams, which means sons and daughters that looks like this, that has been operating in the kingdom of heaven, men and women that's in the earth, that has assignments to do certain things, that had to wait for me to mature enough to do what I needed to do. Once I did what I did, they could establish, because there was 12 of them, which is 12 pillars, which established, because he wasn't hanging on the chandelier that I thought, he was actually holding onto a crown. And once I'd slayed him or cut him open, they got to take this crown and ascend it with it into the earth and brought governance over that section that the Father showed me to overshadow. But they were light beings. Now I realized that they were human beings, like me and you, still alive on the earth, but overshadowing in the full form as what John saw, once like unto the Son, once like unto the Son of God. So we need to begin to understand the Father's desire for us to walk in this, to go deeper than what we've gone before. It's not work. You know, in the beginning for me it was all work because I didn't understand how to do it. My pastor told me if you want to be an anointed man of God, you have to pray 4 or 5 hours a day. And that's what I try to do, but I was a personal trainer. I had to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, my first client was at 5, so I had to wake up at 4 o'clock. How do you sleep a normal night and pray for 4 hours and work the whole day? It's just not going to work. And it didn't work. I had to try and find another way. But when I began to realize that, well, in the kingdom of heaven there's no space and time. I can be praying for 5 minutes, yet spend 2 or 3 days in the kingdom of heaven with revelation, knowledge poured into my spirit that then eventually gets downloaded into my soul. And it's all this infused knowledge and revelation that I have that the Father lines up with His Word. It's incredible. And so it really comes out of a place of worship where I step in and I begin to engage. But engage in the things the Father shows you is all worship. So the Father's desire for us to begin to grow in it, begin to go deeper into what He has made available for us. Exciting, right? Let's stand. Father, we just want to, I know that a lot has been said, a lot of weird things might have come out tonight, and we might look at this whole thing and say, well, I don't really get it. I don't really understand. But Father, I pray that you open up our hearts. There's so much that we don't know. There's so much that you still want to teach us. There's so much you want to pour into us. And we need to stop running away from it. We can't be afraid of everything that's new to us. A couple of years ago, people freaked out because there was drums in the church. But it was evil, it was demonic, it wasn't right, you can't have it. But they had to change, they had to adapt. We realize now that there's nothing wrong with drums or any form of instrument in the church. We begin to realize that the revelations, the insight, the mysteries, the secrets you're pouring into the church today is meant and designed to take us deeper into you. Every engagement, the acknowledgement of the angels, the engagement of the 7 spirits, the engagement of the 4 living creatures which are spending time around your throne, the engagement of the 24 elders, the engagement into the saints of old, the engagement into the cloud of witnesses and the men in white linen. It's also that we can engage and get to know you better. The engagement into the 22 Hebrew letters and understanding that they are fiery gates. It's all to set us to a higher place, a deeper, more intense standard of knowledge regarding who you are so that we can grow deeper in intimacy with you. It's all worship. That is worship. And I pray, Father, we'll begin to understand that as you realign us and you propel us deeper and deeper into who you are. Begin to open up our eyes and show us the things that we need to know, the way that we need to run into you, and how we can make this such a deep, intimate, beautiful, awesome relationship with you. I look at my life and my relationship with you and how it's changed over the last 7 years. Father, I can't say that I would ever want to change this for the world or give this up for any theology or anything. And I know there's thousands of people that comes against this, that hates these teachings, that think that we are false teachers, but yet I will not give this up. I want to stop teaching this for anything in the world. Because this is what changed my life, getting to know you, touch you, feel you, sit with you, understand you pouring into me. Just being able to walk with you and eat of the fruit, to engage with you in everything you do, stand next to you when you're busy with creation and doing all kinds of stuff. It is incredible, Father. We honor you and we love you. And I pray that into the ecclesia. I open the gateways for all this to come into place, for revelation, insight, to fall into the hearts of your people, for us to be opened up for all of this, so we can run with it in its full capacity. Father, we love you, we praise you. In the name of Yeshua. Amen.